You can fire me from your store, Jenna, but you can't fire my hands. And you sure as hell can't fire my legacy. My name is Margaret Morrison. I'm 66 years old, and I've been sewing since I could hold a needle. My friends call me Maggie. My customers call me a miracle worker. My daughter used to call me Mom. I built the most beloved bridal shop in our town from absolutely nothing. At least I thought I did. They sent me an email. That's how I found out I was no longer welcome in. My own store, no call, no visit. Just a cold email with my daughter's full name signed at the bottom, Jenna Catherine Morrison, like I was some stranger she'd hired off the street. Therefore, let me tell you how it all started. Picture a 24-year-old single mom with calloused hands and a 6-month-old baby. That was me, 30 years ago. I had nothing but a dream, and my grandmother's old Singer sewing machine. I built eternal elegance, stitch by stitch, thread by thread, dream by dream. But then life happened. Jenny's father walked out when she was still in diapers. Said he wasn't ready for responsibility. Fine. I'd show him what responsibility looked like. Therefore, I found a narrow storefront on Maple Street. The rent was more than I could afford, but the big front window caught the morning light like a promise. I hung my first sign while shaking hands. Eternal elegance, where dreams meet lace. Jenny grew up in that shop. She took her first steps on those wooden floors, did her homework at the counter while I fitted brides, learned to thread needles before she could tie her shoes. But then she got older. High school came with embarrassment. Do I have to work at the dress shop again, Mom? Rolling eyes. Heavy sighs. She wanted to be anywhere else. Normal teenager. Stuff, I told myself. She'll come back. Therefore, I kept building. Every bride who walked through our door wasn't just buying a dress. She was investing in a dream. Mrs. Chen wanted her grandmother's jade buttons sewn in. Sarah Mitchell needed her train shortened because her fiancé was in a wheelchair. I remembered every story, every tear, every moment of joy. But then Jenny went to business school. Came home with big ideas about websites and social media and brand refresh. I tried to keep up. Spent money I didn't have on things I didn't understand. Then my hands betrayed me. Arthritis. Years of detailed work finally catching up. Therefore, I made the hardest decision of my life. I asked Jenny to take over the business. I kept the building. That was my retirement security. But gave her full control of operations. She had such big plans. Her eyes lit up when she talked about modernizing everything. But then everything changed overnight. The warm lighting I'd chosen disappeared. Harsh fluorescents took their place. The antique settee where mothers cried happy tears got replaced with cold metal chairs. My handwritten appointment book, 26 years of bride stories, thrown in the trash. We're going digital, Mom. It's more efficient. Efficient. Like love could be efficient. Therefore, I tried to adapt. Came in every morning. Made coffee. Organized the storage room. Handled the delicate alterations that required the most careful touch. I thought I was helping. But then came the complaints. Mom, you're confusing the new system. Mom, that's not how we do things anymore. Mom, maybe you should just focus on alterations. I felt like a ghost in my own shop, a ghost watching strangers rearrange my life's work. Therefore, I swallowed my pride. Told myself Jenny was young, ambitious, trying to make her mark. The business was busier than ever. Maybe she was right about modernizing, but then came that email. Dear Margaret, due to restructuring and operational efficiency requirements, your position at Eternal Elegance will be terminated effective immediately. Thank you for your service. Jenna, Catherine Morrison owner, Eternal Elegance. My service. Like 30 years of building something from nothing was just service. I called her. Voicemail. I drove to the shop. She's in meetings all day, the new receptionist said. a girl who looked barely old enough to drive. Therefore, I packed my things in silence. My grandmother's thimbles, old photos of brides, the jar of buttons I'd collected over the years, each one with a story. Jenny wasn't there to watch me leave. Maybe that was mercy. But then, sitting in my car outside the shop that had been my whole world, something clicked into place. Clarity. The building was still mine. The lease was in my name. Jenny was listed as the business operator, but I owned the walls that held 30 years of dreams. Therefore, I went home, made proper tea in my grandmother's china cup, spread the lease papers across my kitchen table, and read every word with the same attention I used to give wedding dress patterns, 60-day notice required, standard language. Nothing complicated. But then I hesitated. This was my daughter, my Jenny, the baby I'd rocked to sleep in that very shop. Therefore, I gave her one chance, sent a simple text. Can we talk? Please? 3 days? Nothing. Tried. Calling. Voicemail every time. But then I saw the Facebook post. Eternal Elegance was hiring an experienced seamstress. Same salary I'd been making. They wanted someone eager to embrace modern bridal fashion trends. They were replacing me with a stranger. That's when I knew. Therefore, I drafted the letter. Professional, respectful, just like her email. Dear Eternal Elegance, your lease for 1247 Maple Street will terminate in 60 days, effective August 15th. This serves as official notice. Margaret Morrison, property owner. Hand-delivered it after hours. Let the new girl deal with it in the morning. But then came the phone calls, her lawyer, threats about contracts and family loyalty, how I was destroying her livelihood out of spite. Spite. Like wanting basic respect from your own child was spite. Therefore, I let him talk, stayed polite, completely unmoved. The lease was clear. I'd followed every rule. My decision was final. Meanwhile, I'd found a new space, 2 blocks down Maple Street. Victorian houses converted to small shops. Same warm feeling as my original place, but better natural light. But then came the real work. Starting over at 66 with arthritic hands and a broken heart. Painted walls myself. Installed mirrors. Set up Grandma's singer in the corner where afternoon sun could find it. Called it Margaret's Alterations and Bridal. Simple. Honest. No pretense. Therefore, I opened on a Tuesday. One small newspaper ad. Experienced seamstress specializing in wedding gowns. Every bride deserves to feel beautiful. But then magic happened. Mrs. Patterson walked in. I'd dressed her daughter 5 years ago. She brought her youngest daughter's engagement announcement. We heard you were back in business, Margaret. Thank goodness. These young people don't understand real seamstress work. Word spread the way it does in small towns, heart to heart. The brides I'd dressed brought their sisters, their friends, their daughters. They brought stories, laughter, the same tears of joy that had blessed my original shop. Therefore, I remembered why I loved this work. Not the dresses, the moments. Quiet conversations between mothers and daughters. The way a woman's face changes when she sees herself in the perfect gown. The sacred act of helping someone become their most beautiful self. My hands still ached. But they remembered their purpose. Every stitch carried intention. Every seam held a story. But then, 3 months after opening, Jenny walked through my door. I was fitting Sarah, a young bride in her grandmother's vintage lace. Sarah was crying happy tears, telling me about her college sweetheart, about his grandmother's engagement. Ring. I looked up. Jenny stood in the doorway. She looked older, tired. Her sharp business suit hung differently than it had in my old shop. Mom, she said. Her voice cracked on that single word. Sarah excused herself, sensing the tension. We stood in silence. Jenny's eyes moved around the space, taking in the warm lighting, the comfortable seating, the vintage wedding photos on my walls. Photos from my original shop, from when she was small enough to nap beside my sewing machine. The lease, she finally said. You terminated our lease. I did. We had to close. I couldn't find another space in time. I kept my voice steady. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Are you really sorry, Mom? Or is this what you wanted? Therefore, I set down my pins, looked at my daughter, really looked for the first time in months. She was angry, yes, but underneath was something else. Shame. What I wanted, I said quietly, was for you to remember I'm your mother. Not just an employee you could dismiss with an email. Her face crumpled. I thought I was being professional. I thought you'd understand. Professional? I shook my head. Jenny, you grew up in that shop. You know every story those walls held. And you threw me away like I was nothing. But then she started crying. Real tears. I messed up, Mom. I know I messed up. I was trying so hard to prove I could run a business, to show everyone I wasn't just riding your reputation, but I lost what made it special. Therefore, my anger softened. This was still my Jenny, my little girl who fell asleep to my sewing machine's hum. You can fire me from your store, Jenna, I said, echoing the words that had been haunting me. But you can't fire my hands, and you sure as hell can't fire my legacy. She wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup. Your new shop, it's beautiful. It feels like the old place, but better. It feels like home, I said. But then she asked the question I'd been dreading and hoping for. Could I work here? With you? I know I don't deserve it, but I want to learn. The right way this time. I looked at my daughter. Not the cold businesswoman who'd fired me by email. The little girl who used to thread needles for me. Who believed. Magic lived between dreams and reality. Therefore, I made her a deal. Start by learning to really sew. Not just manage. Learn every bride's story. Remember every detail that matters. Understand what we're actually selling. What are we selling? She asked. Hope, I said. We're selling hope. For the first time in months, Jenny smiled. Not her practiced business smile. The real one from childhood. Therefore, Margaret's alterations and bridal became what eternal elegance was always meant to be. A place where dreams meet lace. Where mothers and daughters work side by side. Where every stitch carries meaning. Some days Jenny's hands shake learning delicate beadwork. Some days my arthritis makes holding needles hard, but we help each other. The way family should. But then last week, a young bride came asking for me specifically. I heard you're the one who makes impossible alterations possible, she said. I heard you remember every bride's story. I smiled. Led her to the fitting room, Jenny beside me. Let me tell you about hope, I said, pulling out my measuring tape. About the magic that happens when we refuse to give up on what matters most. Therefore, this story isn't really about revenge. Though I won't lie, there was satisfaction in reclaiming my power. It's about understanding your worth. Even when people who should love you most forget to see it. Legacy isn't what you hand over. It's what you hold on to. Therefore, I sew on. Remember every story. Transform dreams into reality, one careful stitch at a time. And Jenny? She's learning. Learning some things can't be streamlined or modernized. Learning the most important skills can't be taught in classrooms. Learning that love, like hope, like the perfect wedding dress, is something you build carefully, patiently, with your own two hands. I gave her everything. She erased me. But I didn't let her erase my legacy. Therefore, if you're listening to this and someone has tried to erase you, whether it's a child, a boss, a spouse, or anyone who forgot your worth, remember this. They can take your job. They can take your title. They can even take your name off the door, but they cannot take what you've built inside yourself. Your skills, your experience, your stories, your legacy. You are not too old to start over. You are not too tired to reclaim your power. You are not too broken to rebuild. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to disappear. Sometimes it's showing up day after day with your head held high and your hands still working magic. Because at the end of the day, legacy isn't about the buildings we leave behind. It's about the lives we've touched, the dreams we've helped come true, the love we've sown into every single thing we've created. And nobody, not even your own child, can take that away from you. So pick up your tools, open your door, tell your story. The world is still waiting for the magic only you can make.